Hello! Hello, Facebook Live. Lindsay Price here, resident playwright for Theater Folk. Okay, in a different little location. Just now, I have been recording podcast intros for the Theater Folk podcast, theaterfolk.com/podcast. But I am alone here in Theater Folk Global Headquarters today, so I couldn't do two things at once. I couldn't do Facebook Live, and I couldn't do the podcast. But what I wanted to do was sort of like, as soon as I was done, click onto you guys and show you our little our setup here. We're very much big believers on doing a lot of things ourselves, and boop, podcasting is really as simple as awesome mic. Things I need to read, tiny little mixer, and it all goes into this. Let me tell you, man, if you ever want to do a podcast, or if you ever want to do any recording of any kind, these guys don't pay us in any way. This is the recorder to end all recorders. What is it? It's Roland. We used to do, all right, I'm going to clean up while I talk to you. We used to use online stuff to record our podcasts. And the number of times where we had this amazing, wonderful conversation with someone, and then we go back to check the track, and it's gone into the internet ether. It's disappeared. We don't know where it goes to, and then we cry, and then we have to call up our wonderful podcast guest and go, hey, you know that really amazing conversation that we had? Do you think you could do it again and just repeat everything just like that? But ever since we've got the Roland, ever since we got this amazing little recorder, everything works perfectly. Everything. Oh, see, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to knock on some wood, because then if I say something like that, then it's going to screw up. Okay, so that's one thing that's happening today in Theater Folk Global Headquarters is summertime is the time that we record a lot of podcasts. Teachers are free, and I can just bank them up, and I can and just have these really amazing conversations. Although I'm not supposed to be talking about podcasts today, I have a schedule only because that way I have something to talk about. Always looking for the Frank. Always looking for the red recording button. Yeah, that's the only thing on this on this Roland. You have to hit the record button twice in order for it to record. Otherwise, it's just a blinking light where nothing is happening. I'm going to talk about podcasts later. The question that I posted in the description, what is the one question students should ask when preparing a scene? Last weekend, I was adjudicating a festival in which there was a workshop component. So it was 6 plays, 6 productions, all putting on the same play. And then I went up after each one and I gave a little public adjudication. And then there was also a workshop session. So we looked at the different aspects of putting on a play. We looked at director's vision and had the director come up and ask all kinds of questions about their vision. We did characterization, where I came up with a whole bunch of character questions that the actors had to answer. There's physicalization, and how characters are create their physical body on stage. And I always start with those with these kinds of workshop sessions. I always like to get groups into thinking about status. And I have to say, I have phrased it in different ways over the years. The definition that I use now is from our amazing drama teacher, instructor, and amazing theater man, Todd Espeland. And the reason that I start with status is because it leads right into what is the one question that students should ask when they are preparing a scene. And of course, I know there's a million questions that you guys could have your students ask. But this one is really good because it deals with relationships. It deals with knowing who your character is. It deals with blocking. It is an amazing question that the answer can help illuminate all of these things for students, which sometimes can be a little bit difficult. And that question, which also links into status, is who has the power and the control in the scene. Those are very important words, the power and the control. And for me, the definition that I have started using recently about what status is if you want to, and this is something that you can also ask your students, what do you think, what is status? And for me, it's status is all about power and control. So, wonderful definition from the amazing Todd Espeland, he is the artistic director of a huge community theater in Kalamazoo. He has spent years crafting a physical theater background. He acts, he directs, he teaches, and he has been an amazing asset to theater folks' education arm, the Drama Teacher Academy. He has taught courses for us on commedia, on big picture blocking, on Shakespeare. He has another Shakespeare one coming out in the fall, on rehearsal exercises. And so I follow him all the time. And I think that's one thing which I think is really interesting about teaching and learning, is that teaching and learning, it's the best kinds. It's all kind of open book. It's all open source, I guess, right? That when we learn something in an educational field, the best thing we can do is turn it around and teach it to somebody else, right? We don't learn something and then go and hide and never keep it to ourselves. We don't learn something and then go, well, I'm never going to tell anybody that. The best thing is that to learn something and then to turn around and teach it to somebody else and tell them, okay, this is yours. Go do something with it. Go teach somebody else or go apply it. When I teach workshops at conferences, I always end by saying, I am giving you these information. I'm giving you this information. I'm giving you these exercises. Go and use them as you will. Tear the exercises apart. Use the bits that work for you. Use them all. That's the best situation, I think, for teaching and learning. So what I'm saying is that I learn so much from our instructors at the Drama Teacher Academy, and I look at what they are teaching our teachers, and I go, I love that. Oh, I can use that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to take what I have learned, and I'm going to apply it to my teaching, and I'm going to apply it out into the world. So I have been applying things that I have learned from Todd in my adjudication, and we was all talking about scene work, right? And all about asking those questions about how do we make the scenes the best that they can be, which is why I really wanted to identify that one question today. What is the most important, what is the one question that students should ask when they are preparing a scene? And the question, who has the power and the control in the scene? Which is really the question, who is high status and who is low status? What is the status of this relationship? What is the status going on? Because when you start to talk about who has the power and the control, one, you have character, right? If you have a character who has the power and the control, what does that say about who they are? What do you know about that character based on what they say and what others say about them? What does it say about the dialogue that they have? You can't just say, oh, I'm a high status character. I am the one with all the power and the control. They have to back it up. So who has the power and control? Character. Who has the power and control has everything to do with physicalization, right? A high status character is going to hold themselves so much differently than a low status character. A high status character is going to not only have control of maybe another person, they have control of themselves. Whereas a low status person, that's where they they lose control, right? They give away their control. They give away their power. And the question, you can expand on that by asking a student, okay, if you're the low status character, excuse me, and if you are without power and if you are without control, how does that affect how you hold your physical body? Status, I think, is amazing. And it's the reason that when I saw Todd Espelin talking and teaching this, and he was doing it with Commedia, and I was like, I can apply that to everything. I can apply that to playwriting. I can apply that to adjudication. And the reason that it's so important in terms of physicalization is that status is something you must show. You cannot just say, I'm a high status character. You have to be a high status character. You have to embody their physicality, right? And it's the kind of thing that when a character walks on stage, an audience will look at them and go, oh, I know who that is. And that's what we want. That's what we want from our students when they're working on scenes. We want them to know who their characters are. We want them to be able to physicalize their character. We want them to make an entrance that establishes who they are and what their power is instantaneously. Okay, so we have answering the question, who has the power and the control of the scene, affecting character, affecting physicalization, affecting blocking, right? If you are a high status character, Todd has this great description of that high status characters, they don't worry about their personal space. They could have a small bubble of personal space, or they could have a large bubble of personal space. It doesn't bother them, right? They are very, they're good with contact, eye contact. I see you. Physical contact, verbal contact. So if all you say to someone is, if you're a high status character and you have power and control in the room, how are you going to use that to affect your blocking? Do you walk right in and hover over the low status character, blocking wise, get right into their space? If you're the low status character, what do you do to make sure that nobody touches you, or that you want to keep as much space from everybody else as possible? And then by doing this, all of a sudden, what you're doing is you have characterization, physicalization, and blocking that is all coming from somewhere. It's not coming from, I've been sitting in this chair a long time, I should move. Right? Because that is what always comes across with students sometimes. And also that you have characterization and physicalization that maybe you can pull your students away from their normal self. Because that's the big thing that comes up with scene work so often with students, is what they do is they play themselves, and their physical body is themselves, and their characterization is themselves, and it doesn't quite matter what character they've been given, it all starts to look and sound a lot like them. Christine, I love that. Yes, low status is defensive. I like that so much I had to take a pause. Low status is defensive, and that is something that is really easy to play, right? Because defensive characters it's all about, if you're looking at it, point blank, the defensive character is holding the hand in front of their face so that something doesn't happen to them. So, you don't necessarily want your character to have their hand in front of their face, but how can they emulate that physicality? How can they use their voice to be defensive? How can they use, how can they use that shoulder to be defensive? It's just a fabulous thing. And that's the reason why that's the sentence that I wanted the question that I wanted to share today and talk about, because that's the thing that I was talking about with a whole bunch of actors this past weekend. And it was really amazing because after sharing the thought for the first time, talking about what is high status, what is low status, defining who has the power and the control in the scene, for every subsequent production, we were able to see and identify who has the status in the scene, who has the control of the scene, how it affects their character, how it affects their physicalization, how it affects their blocking, entrances and exits. If you can get your students to start making good entrances and exits in your scene, you have won. Okay. So there's also in the description, I wanted to share with you, since we're talking about scene work, we've got some scenes that you could really use in the classroom, and the reason that they're really great in the classroom is because they're short. These particular ones are all in the 8 to 10 minute range, and they're also in nice small groups, right? You want, with your scene work, I think that particularly with beginning students, if you've got 2 and 3 handers, then everybody can work together. Oh, Christine, you've asked such an amazing question. So don't forget that. I just want to show these off first because I want to stay on my tangent. But I quite like that so much. We have, I can't remember, I can't show these because Facebook has a thing where everything turns backwards. But the descriptions, the links are in the description. We have a 10-minute play series, all high school aged characters, all school aged characters, all have really interesting individual, unique characteristics. You know, take a look at these scenes. Who's got the status? Who has the power and the control? The first one's called 10-Minute Play Be Challenged. So that's got some characters that are not your normal, every ordinary day characters, and also some framing in the plays that are not everyday ordinary. We have a 10-minute play series called All Girls. All Girls, because we know you've got girls in your classroom and you need scenes, interesting scenes with girls in them. Orange. And then lastly, 10-minute play series, Girls and Guys. I really like writing pieces where you can be gender flexible, where it could be played by all girls, it could be played by all guys, it could be played by 2 girls and a guy. And how does that affect the scene? How does that affect the relationships? And also some relationships with a girl and a guy, because that relationship is always interesting too. Christine has asked the amazing question, what about 2 alpha characters competing for the high ground? There's always going to be a character who has, well, there should always be a character who has a little bit less power. Because otherwise you don't have an interesting scene, right? You have two characters who are going like this. And that means if they're on even footing, then this is the result of your scene. But there's got to be even something as little as this, where this one has just this much power over this one. And it could just be that this one has this much power over this one for the moment, right? Characters change status in a scene all the time. The high status becomes the low status, and the low status becomes the high status. And it's really important to also acknowledge, and I'm going to acknowledge that this also comes from the amazing theater man, Todd Espelin, that high status doesn't necessarily mean snobby and rich, and low status doesn't necessarily mean emotionally damaged, cowering in the corner. It's just a matter of, it's that notion of power and control. And a really amazing example of that is, if a rich, high-powered lawyer walks into a coffee shop, and usually they have all the status and the power in their life, and they say to the waitress, get me a cup of coffee. And the waitress looks at him and says, we're out. She has the power and the control. She is the one, if the controls she is the one who controls the coffee, right? So she is not rich. And she might not have status anywhere else in her life, but in that moment, she's the one with the power and the control. Yeah, you want to always find, particularly if you've got 2 characters who are of the same level, there's gotta be, in the development of the scene, there's gotta be a moment where one can gain power over the other. And there's lots of ways that people can gain power and control, right? It could be as little as, somebody's suit jacket gets wrinkled, or somebody gets a phone call and we see a flaw. I know. When are we're gonna lose this someday. Somebody is, this doesn't exist anymore. This thing of the phone. Again, I am an old person. This is the phone. It doesn't exist. Excellent quote, Christine. Rudeness is the small man's imitation of power. Ooh, yes, because you can have, how many times have we known, rich people, people with assumed status who, they're not nice people. They are rude human beings. All right. I have been talking for a long time. And this has been a very interesting, this is something that I think is really interesting to talk about and to share, is that I think you can get a really great conversation going about power and control in a scene, status in a scene, and how it affects characterization, how it affects physicalization, and how it affects blocking. And that from moment to moment, who is the character who has power and control? And hopefully it changes up. Hopefully either you've got a scene where person A has the power and control, but person B ends the scene with power and control, or that person A starts, person B grabs, but person A gets it back again. And don't forget to check out our 10-minute play series, theaterfolk.com. The links are in the description, where of course you can go and you can read sample pages from all of these. Our 10-minute play series, they are suitable for the classroom. They are all teen-aged characters in a variety of situations. We have Be Challenged, which means they're a little bit, they're more than your every ordinary regular scene. We have all girls, because we know you need girls in your scenes, and girls and guys, where we're talking about the relationship between girls and guys, and we're also talking about playing to particular parts, and if you can play it as a girl or play it as a guy. And you know what, I should just mention too that one of my favorite scenes of all time that I've written is in this one, which I know is looking backwards to you, Girls and Guys, and it's a scene that's called Girls and Boys, in which Keith, who is a not entirely bright linebacker, who is failing a class, and Cameron, who is actually a girl, and who is super smart, super bright, super focused, and actually knows a ton about football. And it's about the stereotype, about how Keith sees that his tutor is a girl and is like, nope, I picked Cameron because Cameron is a boy's name. I thought it was a boy. I thought that a guy would understand me. And Cameron is like, I understand you full well. I understand that, I understand that you are not going to be able to play football very much longer, right? Because Keith says that I need a boy because I need a guy tutor, because a guy's going to understand and a guy's going to get me out of this. Coach says he's going to get you out of this. And Cameron says, well, he didn't, did he? And why don't you take care of it, Why don't you get your grades back up on your own? You might need those grades. You're a linebacker, right? Don't you know how easy it is to get injured, hit someone the wrong way, tear a pectoral, or wreck your shoulder, or get a neck stinger that won't go away? You think coach is going to be around in the first week of college, you get injured on a blitz, and your career is over? You'll have no one to blame but yourself. And there's like, she's like, you're going to end up working the drive-thru at the Taco Bell. You're never going to play pro. You sat out 6 games last season because of a bum ankle. You had a back injury the year before that. Dwayne Twilsenberg is miles better than you, and you know it. How many scouts are looking at you, really? You have 2 choices. You can hit me and get kicked out of school, but then you don't have to do your math homework. So there's a plus. Or you can work with me every afternoon and get your grades up to a C. Those are your only choices, because I'm not leaving. I chose you, Keith. I've been looking for the right player to tutor, and you're it. I think you're a lunkhead, but I've seen you with the younger players. You take care of them, and I'll bet you if you had less man things in your brain, you could teach. You will do this. You will have a backup plan. I will not leave you. All right, so please join me back here again Friday, probably around 10 to 11 in the a.m. or 11, because as always on Friday, we have a giveaway, and we have another giveaway to give to you. Thank you for joining me, and have an awesome day.